It was rumored for a bit, but it has since been confirmed. The UFC is going back to the UK for UFC 304 in July, and with there being multiple champions from the UK in Tom Aspinall and Leon Edwards, although Leon is technically from Jamaica, but you know what I mean. Along with there being a lot of great UK prospects in general, I wanted to put together what is, in my opinion, the best possible card for UFC 304. But first, I do want to talk about this start time. So when I first read it, I thought it said the main card started at 11, and I was wondering, why is everyone so upset? I get it's a little later than normal, but then I found out it wasn't the main card that started at 11, it was the early prelims, meaning that the main card wouldn't even start until like 3 a.m. UK time, and the main event wouldn't end till 5, 6 a.m. I get why the UFC is doing this. They're trying to cater more toward the American audience, which does make up the large majority of their audience. But honestly, as an American, I like the cards that begin earlier, start at, 3, end at 6 or 7. I prefer that over the cards ending at 1, 2 in the morning. But let's get into making what is, in my opinion, the perfect card for UFC 304, starting with the main event. And there's two ways you can go with this, but I went with Tom Aspinall, and I went with him versus Curtis Blaydes. Tom Aspinall has already confirmed that he is going to be on UFC 304, and there are really only two guys he could fight. I mean, he should be fighting John Jones. That's the fight that makes the most sense. That's the fight I want to see. That's the fight you want to see, but John has basically declined that fight, said he doesn't want to fight Aspinall. Instead, he wants to fight 80-year-old Stipe, who hasn't fought in over 3 years and hasn't got a win in like 4 years. So if he's not going to fight John to unify the belt, then he's going to have to defend his interim belt, and there's only two guys he would face, and that's Curtis Blaydes or Ciryl Gane. I did hear that the UFC offered Ciryl Gane the fight, but he turned it down because he was filming a movie. I'm not sure if that's true or not. It might be true. I wouldn't be surprised. But Ciryl Gane has got too many title shots. He's actually been in the last 3 UFC heavyweight title fights, and he's never won undisputed. He lost to Francis, lost to John Jones, all within the last 2 years, and he's coming off 1 win over Sergey Spivak. He needs to do a lot more before he gets that 3rd title shot. And honestly, Blaydes deserves it more. He's coming off a win over Jailton Almeida, and he technically has a win over Tom Aspinall, although it doesn't really count. With Tom injuring his knee like 10 seconds into the fight. Plus, it's a very entertaining fight. Going to be very action-packed for the fans at 5 a.m. Help wake them up. And honestly, I've been saying it for a while. It's one of Aspinall's toughest matchups. Blaydes is one of the best wrestlers in the heavyweight division, has good takedown defense, can defend Aspinall's takedowns, and he's a pretty good striker as well. He has a very good jab, a very good cross, good 1-2s. He is very powerful, has the ability to knock you out with one punch like he did against Chris Daukaus, and Tom Aspinall has very suspect striking defense. He keeps his chin straight up in the air, his hands super low, and you can actually see when he blitzes into range, he actually raises his chin, which leaves him super exposed. And this actually got him caught in the Sergey Pavlovich fight, but his chin has looked very good, but it only takes 1 in the heavyweight division. But do I think Curtis Blaydes beats him? I don't. Honestly, I don't think there's anyone on the planet I would favor over Aspinall in a fight. He definitely has tough matchups. I think Curtis Blaydes is a tough matchup. Sergey Pavlovich is always a tough matchup. John Jones, Francis, if he returns the same guy he was before the Anthony Joshua knockout, which I doubt at his age, I think that would have been his toughest matchup. A guy with good takedown defense, better boxing, and hits really hard. But honestly, as good as Blaydes' wrestling is, I don't see him stopping the takedowns. He couldn't stop Jailton Almeida's takedowns. He went 9 for 13 against Curtis Blaydes, and Almeida is probably a worse wrestler and is way smaller than Aspinall. The issue was Almeida had a hard time controlling him, but Tom Aspinall is a good wrestler, a very good grappler, has good top control, can land good ground and pound shots if he looks to take this fight down, which I think he could take Curtis Blaydes down, and I think he would. And on the feet, I would say Aspinall is a better boxer overall, and Blaydes doesn't have a great chin, it seems like. He got knocked out by Sergey, got knocked out by Derek Lewis, got knocked out by Francis Ngannou, which I get it, those are some of the hardest hitting guys to ever walk the planet, but still, he's been knocked out before, and Tom Aspinall's chin has looked very good. And he has the clear speed advantage, which I think Blaydes will struggle with, so I do think Tom Aspinall does beat Curtis Blaydes. I think he knocks him out in the 1st or 2nd round. So I have Tom Aspinall versus Curtis Blaydes 2 for the interim heavyweight title as the main event, and then for the co-main event, I have Leon versus Belal 2 for the welterweight title. I know a lot of people aren't going to be happy about this matchup. They think Belal is boring, which he is. He has had a lot of boring fights, but I think how boring he is overstated because he has a lot of good fights as well. The Sean Brady fight, for example, was very entertaining, but it doesn't matter because Belal definitely deserves a title shot. He is on a 9-fight unbeaten streak, and he beat guys like Damian Maia, Stephen Thompson, Vicente Luque, okay, Sean Brady, Gilbert Burns. So even if you do think Belal is boring, he definitely deserves a title shot, so it doesn't really matter. But honestly, go back and watch the first Leon Edwards and Belal fight, because that was one of Leon's most entertaining fights in a long time. Instead of point fighting, sitting on the outside and just kicking and moving like he typically does, he was actually fighting aggressive. He was on the front foot, walking forward, throwing volume, which typically he doesn't do. Typically he does just enough to win rounds, but here he was using Belal pretty much as a punching bag up until the eye poke. And if we do see that aggressive version of Leon as well, maybe if we see that aggressive version of Belal, like the Belal that fought Sean Brady, I think this could be a very entertaining fight. And I honestly think this will surprise a lot of people. I think this will be more exciting than what a lot of people are expecting. But as for who I think wins this fight, I definitely think Leon beats Belal. Belal is very well-rounded. He's pretty good pretty much everywhere. He has good wrestling, good grappling. He's a good striker. He just doesn't have that much power. But as technical as he is on the feet, he is not a better striker than Leon. I think Leon's probably the best striker in the division, so he's not going to want to strike with Leon, and I don't see him taking Leon down. He couldn't in their first fight, and honestly, he didn't really do much of anything. He really couldn't do much in their first fight. Leon was just shutting him down, and I know Belal's improved a lot since then, but so has Leon. Leon's takedown defense, although I think it is a tad bit overrated, has looked decent against better wrestlers like Colby, like Kamaru. He defended 8 of 10 takedowns against Leon. He defended 11 of 15 takedowns against Kamaru in their third fight, and those are both better wrestlers than Belal, so I don't see Belal getting Leon down. And on the feet, Belal doesn't have too good of defense, and I think Leon's just going to pick him apart from the outside with jabs, with left straights. They're in opposite stances, so that opens up the body and that head kick from Leon. So no, I don't see Belal winning this fight. I think Leon beats him. I could even see Leon knocking him out, especially if we get that more aggressive version of Leon, which I hope we do, because then I could see this being a very entertaining fight. So we got our main and our co-main 2 title fights, and then we're going to move on to, I think this is called the featured bout, which I have Wonderboy versus Michael Venom Page, which I know they said that they're friends, they don't really want to fight each other, and MVP said that he didn't think it would be an entertaining fight because they'd just be looking for the openings on each other and they're both too high level, so it would be sort of a stalemate on the feet. But I don't care. I've wanted to see this fight for so long. These are 2 of the most entertaining fighters in the UFC, and it makes a lot of sense ranking wise. It's a fun matchup for the fans, especially the UK fans, with MVP being a very big star over there. And honestly, I don't see this being a boring fight, even if it is less action-packed. With how technical these guys are, I think seeing them picking out their openings, countering, the distance management, I think it would all be very fun for the fans. And it's a very competitive fight. If I had to make a prediction, I would lean with Wonderboy. I think he is the better striker, and that long-bladed karate stance MVP takes is perfect for Wonderboy leg kicks, and when they're in opposite stances, Wonderboy can mix in the head kicks and the body kicks. MVP uses kicks, but he doesn't use them to the same degree as Wonderboy. We know MVP is going to look to sit on the outside, blitz in, and try and land that big right hand. He has a lot of power in that hand. He can knock Wonderboy out with 1 punch, but when he's blitzing, he leaves himself very defenseless. He keeps his chin up in the air, he keeps his hands very low, and he comes with wide overhands that Wonderboy could counter with jabs, with crosses. MVP's defense is pretty heavily reliant on his reflexes and his head movement, but Wonderboy's so fast and he's so good at timing his shots and his counters to the point where I think he will be able to land on MVP. But if MVP lands that big overhand, it could be over for Wonderboy. But I will take Stephen Thompson, and I'll take him by a decision as an early prediction. I hope this fight happens. If it doesn't, I would like to see MVP versus Jeff Neal. Then that would be a great fight. And then for the next fight on the card, I have another guy from the UK, Arnold Allen, taking on Josh Emmett. Now, there are a lot of guys you can match Arnold Allen up with, but I think the Josh Emmett fight is one of the best. This fight will be so entertaining. 2 very good strikers. Both guys do have some wrestling, but I think both have the takedown defense to defend each other's shots, keep this fight standing. It makes sense ranking wise. Allen is coming off of 2 losses and Emmett is coming off a win, so Allen has to look down. Emmett gets to look up. They're number 6 and number 7. Allen has way better footwork. He's way faster, and honestly, he's probably the more technical striker compared to Josh Emmett, but Emmett does have the power, and Allen's chin has never been tested against a guy who hits as hard as Josh Emmett. Emmett is probably the hardest hitting 145er ever. Look at that knockout against Bryce Mitchell, where he just started seizing. It was a very scary knockout, but Emmett has the ability to knock you out with 1 punch, and punch for punch, I do think he is the hardest hitting featherweight ever. And although Allen's chin has looked pretty good, I mean, he did get dropped against Max Holloway, but for some reason they didn't count it. He absolutely got dropped at the end of that 5th round, but I don't think anyone has the chin to take a clean shot from Josh Emmett, and honestly, I think Allen is the better overall striker, and if he can avoid that one big overhand from Josh Josh Emmett, I think he'll outbox him similar to how Ilia Topuria outboxed him. So for a prediction, I would pick Arnold Allen, but that power coming back at him is scary. And then for the next fight, I got a #1 contender fight between Brandon Royval and Mokaev, who I guess technically represents the UK. But this fight makes a lot of sense. As I said, the winner will get a title shot, and I think this fight makes more sense than like Mokaev versus Amir Albazi, simply because I think it is a more entertaining fight for the fans. Royval is a guy that will go at Mokaev. He'll throw these wide winging shots with a lot of power behind him. He won't let Mokaev just lay on him or sit back and point fight. He has decent striking. He has a good amount of power. He's very long and tall for the division, which could give Mokaev a ton of problems in the stand-up. He's also very good on the ground, has good jiu-jitsu. He's not going to let Mokaev just sit on top of him. He's going to be rolling for submissions, chokes, and leg locks. He's going to be looking for ground and pound even off his back. So I don't think this will be like Mokaev's last fight against Alex Perez, where he's just attempting takedowns for dear life and not really throwing much volume. I think Royval will put the pressure on him and will force him to act instead of just sitting back. And I think the added stakes of this being a #1 contender fight, the winner of this fight should get a title shot against Pantoja after. But who do I think wins this fight? I would probably lean with Mokaev because Royval does not have great takedown defense. He was taken down pretty consistently by guys like Tim Elliott, Pantoja, Brandon Moreno as well. He's just never had great takedown defense, and Mokaev is a pretty good wrestler, should be able to get him down, and although Royval's not going to make it easy on the ground, he's going to be attempting submissions off his back. I think the control time and the ground and pound will help him win rounds. I get it, control time isn't scored, but I mean, it is scored, let's be honest, even if it shouldn't be. And even on the feet, although Royval isn't the best striker, he's not the most technical, he leaves a lot to be desired there. He leaves a lot of holes, a lot of openings, a lot of his shots come very wide. He is still very powerful, but I would lean with Mokaev. And then I was going to have this next fight headlining the prelims, but for the UK fans, for them having to stay up till 6 in the morning for this card, let's give them a 6-fight main card where I have Paddy Pimblett versus Drew Dober opening the main card. I know Paddy Pimblett versus Moicano has been thrown around a lot, but honestly, I'd prefer if Moicano looked up in the rankings, which he deserves to. I think him versus Beneil Dariush makes a lot of sense. But I know they both have talked about wanting to fight each other. Moicano called him out after his last win against Jalen Turner at UFC 300, so I wouldn't be upset. But I would really like to see this fight between Drew Dober and Paddy Pimblett. It was being talked about for a while. Drew Dober agreed to the fight. I'm pretty sure Paddy called him out a couple of times as well. And I think this makes a lot of sense. One last test before you give Paddy a ranked guy, because if the rankings extended, Drew Dober would be like 17, 18, somewhere just outside of the rankings. And this is a really good fight as well. A tough fight to pick. I would lean with Drew Dober. He doesn't have great wrestling, doesn't have great takedown defense, but he is huge. He is one of the biggest lightweights ever. And Paddy isn't the best wrestler. I could see Drew Dober defending a lot of the takedowns, and on the feet, Paddy doesn't have much for him. Paddy's striking is not very good. He's decent offensively. He has a lot of power. He walks forward and throws shots at you, but defensively, there is nothing good there. He keeps his chin straight up in the air, his hands very low. He throws wide shots that just get him countered all the time. He's getting countered against Tony Ferguson. He was getting countered against Jared Gordon all day, and Drew Dober has ridiculous power. He can knock you out with one punch, but if Paddy does get this fight to the ground, he's going to have a big advantage there. We saw Moicano control Drew Dober on the ground, and honestly, Dober's decision-making on the ground didn't look too good, but I would lean with Drew Dober, and I think he knocks him out in the first round. I don't think Paddy has the chin to take a clean shot from Drew Dober. But that is my 6-fight main card for UFC 304. This is how I would matchmake it. I would have Paddy Pimblett versus Drew Dober opening the main card. I would have Mohamed Mokaev versus Brandon Royval for the #1 contender spot. I would have Arnold Allen versus Josh Emmett, Wonderboy versus Michael Venom Page, Leon versus Belal 2 for the welterweight title as the co-main, and Aspinall versus Curtis Blaydes 2 for the interim heavyweight title as the main event. Some other guys I'd like to see on the card would be Nathaniel Wood. He is very entertaining. Always like watching him. I think Molly McCain would be good as well. She's a very big name over there in the UK. There are so many great fights you can put on this card. I'm very excited to see what does get announced, and I will be covering those announcements when they happen. So subscribe so you don't miss that. Turn on post notifications. Like the video if you did enjoy. Leave your opinions on how you would matchmake this card in the comments down below, and I'll see you guys in the next one.